Welcome to OkState Daily. Casey Porter here, joined by Chase Whitwiska, as I am on each and every show. It is Bedlam week, and we are going to set up the big game Saturday, 2:30 inside Boone Pickens Stadium. Chase, welcome in. What are your initial thoughts about the game?
Man, it's going to be a big one, and it's going to be a fun one. You know, I'm excited for the environment. You know, I'm excited that I get to be there and be there for, you know, probably the last one for a while, unless it's a bowl game or something like that. I don't see him playing an in-season game for quite some time, and it would be my guess. You know, a lot of guys, Oklahoma State, for example, I mean, they have games out through 2035 already that are planned. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure what's going to happen, but I do know OU loses some games with opponents that they had set up in the early season with SEC teams. So they may be feeling. I would love to see, you know, Oklahoma State and OU go at it again. But for right now, I'm excited I get to be there for the last one.
Yeah, no doubt about that. So what are your initial thoughts on who do you think should be favored in this game? Who's the better team? Of course, I think you're going to probably predict Oklahoma State's going to win because of the Boone Pickens factor to that. And plus, you know, hey, man, last game, there's going to be a lot of motivation on the line here. So what are your initial thoughts as far as who's the better team? How's this going to go?
I think the more talented team is Oklahoma. And just with the recruits and stuff that they get, you know, I think it's easy to say that they have probably better athletes and whatnot. I think the better coached team is Oklahoma State, and I think the hotter team is Oklahoma State by far.
Where do you give Oklahoma State the coaching advantages? Curious there. Oklahoma, just looking at Oklahoma, they outgain Oklahoma State, they outscore Oklahoma State. They give up fewer yards defensively, and they give up fewer points than Oklahoma State defensively. And there's been kind of a similar type to, you know, they both played Kansas, that type of deal. Both played a similar non-conference schedule. So where do you give the coaching advantages to Oklahoma State and why?
I think the coaching advantages come from experience. You know, BrentVenables is in his second year, and I think, and as an Oklahoma State fan, I try to be as unbiased when I say this as I can. I think highly of him. You know, I think he is going to be a good head coach. He's a heck of a defensive mind. He's shown that at Clemson and prior at OU when he was there. And if you keep up or watch any of his stuff on social media, he seems like a guy that is pretty motivational. However, I do see a lack of knowledge in terms of game management. Mm-hmm. I think he struggles there. I think Jeff Lebby struggles when it comes to bigger games, at least is what it seemed like so far. You know, if you go back to last year when Oklahoma State's playing like absolute dog crap in Norman, you know, that at least for the first half. OU
did you say last year or which year did you talk about?
Last year, when OU gets up 28-0 in the first half.
Yeah.
By that point, you know the game's probably over. They don't score another point in the second half. I don't get how you do that. And Coach Mason, you know, I think he was a good coach, but I don't think he was a great coach in terms of defense.
I'd take the trade. I love Nardo. You know, I love
too.
Nardo. I love his creativity, but what I really love about Nardo, I promise you he's way more creative than what you're seeing with the defense right now. He's been humble enough, smart enough, and, you know, just good enough of a young coach to scale things back to the exact perfect mix, to have enough creativity, but also, you know, not so much where the kids aren't playing fast.
Yeah, no, absolutely. He makes it simple enough, and I said this last video. He makes it simple enough for the young guys to feel comfortable, but complex enough to keep offensive coordinators off balance, which I think is great for right now with what we've got with youth youth on the defense. Period. But like I said, I just give the coaching advantage to Oklahoma State because of the experience. You know, you've got MikeGundy who's 20 years into it, and
is his experience against OU good though?
It's not, but I think this team is a little bit different than any other team that he's had in the past. I don't think this team is necessarily as talented, but if you look at how together they are,
I don't think it's as deep. I think Ollie's pretty talented.
Yes.
I think the receivers are good. Brendan Presley's good. If you have everybody healthy, everybody's good. But you only have one set of them, you know, at that level.
Exactly.
Whereas in the past, it seems like you've had 9, 10, or, you know, that many types of receivers. You know, I think Oklahoma State has 3 good linebackers. Mm-hmm. We really don't know who you'd bring in behind, you know, that kind of deal. So I think this is a group that is talented. I just don't think it's as deep.
I'm not saying it's not talented. I think that we've had more talented teams in the past and deeper teams in the past.
Yeah.
I don't think Alan Bowman is necessarily the most talented quarterback we've had in the last 10 years.
He's not the least either, I don't think.
Right. No, I'm not taking that. I'm not saying that at all. But OllieGordon, in my opinion, is the best back that we've had in a long time. So he is more talented than any other back that we've had. And I think if you go over to the defensive side, they're just so young that it's hard to tell what they're going to be. I think if you take a team right now compared to the Jim Knowles defense the last year he was here, I think that team was more talented. But with the youth, it's hard to say what they'll be in a year or two, if that makes sense.
That's a big statement to make about OllieGordon, considering that Keith Toston, going back to, like the Dantrell, let's just go back to the Dantrell Savage and Kendall Hunter. Fill me in if there's some that I'm missing here. Dantrell Savage, Kendall Hunter, Keith Toston, Chris Carson, you had Justice Hill, Jalen Warren, Joe Randall. Boy,
Chuba
that's
Hubbard.
7 right there that I think all played in the NFL.
Yeah, Chuba Hubbard too.
Chuba Hubbard, there's 8. Shoot, how can I forget Chuba Hubbard? I knew I was forgetting. There's 8 backs right there since the Dantrell Savage played in the NFL, Kendall Hunter played in the NFL, Joe Randall played in the NFL, Keith Toston played in the NFL, Chris Carson, Justice Hill, Jalen Warren, and Chuba Hubbard. That's 8 right there just off the top of our heads that all played in the NFL. That's a big statement to make about OllieGordon.
Yeah, and mark my words, okay? OllieGordon's going to play a long time in the NFL. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it.
Read my lips.
Yeah, I mean, if you take his size and his speed, and then just you've seen him grow so much within just a year, in terms of vision and cuts and things like that. I think some of that has to do with scheme,
yes,
but I also think some of that has to do with experience. And he's getting better and better each week. I mean, I don't know. That's why I think so highly of him. I mean, I can't remember the last time, we compared him to Adrian Peterson. Speaking of Bedlam, we compared him to Adrian Peterson, and there was a stat that came out that OllieGordon had more rushing yards in 2 games than Adrian Peterson has ever had in 3 consecutive games.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Nice.
So,
Nice.
I mean, if that doesn't tell you something, I don't know. I mean, because Adrian Peterson was a semifinalist in the Heisman. He went on to play in the NFL for the Vikings and however other many teams he played for, and had a heck of a career. I saw something that said he's still wanting to come back at 39, which I don't know if that's going to happen or not. But, I mean, he's a talented back, and I think Ollie's right there. I really do.
So just know I'm going to play the devil's advocate for just about everything because I know you think Oklahoma State's going to win. You are very convicted in your ideas with that. You know a lot more about OU, honestly, than I have. To be honest with you, Chase, ever since OU and Texas said they're going to the SEC, they're dead to me. I have not watched any of their games. I don't care about them. I have to care about OU this week because they play OSU. So I know enough about them just to be dangerous as far as being a devil's advocate. So just know that that's where we're headed for this. Okay, so you think Oklahoma State has the advantage in coaching, okay, because MikeGundy has the experience. You like Coach Nardo. You don't think BrentVenables has been a good game manager, if I sum that up correctly?
Correct. And I don't want to take away from what Oklahoma did against Texas this year because Texas is a really, really, really good team. And they hung with them. They stayed in the game, and they ended up winning. But if you go back to that OU-Texas game and you look at his game management throughout that game, it wasn't very good. Yeah. I think they stole a win away from Texas, in my opinion. And I don't think that that's necessarily – obviously, that's not what the score showed or anything like that because Oklahoma came out on top. Mm-hmm. But if you go to the college football rankings that just came out, Texas is 7, I think, and Oklahoma's 9. That's
because they're Texas, though. I mean, they do that every year, and then Texas falls apart.
Right. But they haven't yet. They haven't. And
they don't have to play OSU. Usually OSU is the team that makes them fall apart.
Right. And I don't know if Texas is going to lose another game this year because, like I said, they're a really, really good team. And I think that Oklahoma stole a win away. I think
they're okay. They don't have their quarterback for the remainder of the regular season. I think if you had to put odds on it, I think it would be more in the favor of them losing another game. I don't know what game they wouldn't be favored in, but I just think over the long haul without your starting quarterback, I think the odds would be that Texas would lose another game.
Sure. And I don't know how much you look – I doubt you look at this. The lines and stuff like that in Vegas, that Vegas comes out with in terms of games and points and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. There was not much of any change when Quinn Ewers went out against whoever Texas played last week. So that tells me that they don't see a huge drop off in that quarterback position. Right. Yeah. And I think that says something because there's money on the line. I think that if they saw a big drop off, the over under would decrease or whatever.
Okay, so Oklahoma on offense. If you look at Jeff Lebby, I know he's taken some heat from Oklahoma fans. I've heard the comment many different times. Hey, OSU's offense is a lot more creative than OU's. I think there's an argument to be had there. Just watching him from the past and a little bit I saw him in the Texas game, and just was kind of watching them as little as I have. Okay, it looks to me like his entire offense is pretty simple schematically, but it's all based on tempo. So what worries me about this week is you have all of these young secondary players, and it's all going to be about having about 1 second to line up properly. It's all going to be about getting 1 second to figure out what your job and responsibility is. I think what Coach Nardo's MO has been, hey, I need to dial up a blitz on this play. Hey, I need to make an adjustment between play 1 and play 2 and get this shut down. I think he's a master at that. He's not going to have time to make adjustments in mid-drive this week because OU's going to have too much tempo. That worries me with the young secondary.
Sure, and I think that comes down to game management by MikeGundy. Going into this, you have to know what OU's strengths are on offense, which is their quarterback and their tempo. Because DylanGabriel he's a really good quarterback. Is
he as good as people say he is?
I think he's really good.
Okay.
I think that he's much better than he was last year. I didn't think very highly of him last year. I thought he was average. But if you look at what he's done over the course of the season, take out the Kansas game because the scheme sucked and the conditions sucked. All that stuff was terrible. But if you look at, I'll go back to the Texas game. If you look what he did against Texas, who has a really good defense, he lit them up. Yeah. I think that I'm looking at his stats right now. He's thrown for 2,300 yards, 71.4% completion rate. He's averaging 9.1 yards a pass, and he's thrown 19 touchdowns. I'm not sure how many. 4 interceptions, 19 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. I'd say that's pretty good. And granted, they haven't played outside of Texas. They haven't played a really hard, difficult schedule. But I think the numbers speak for themselves in terms of that. But what I think Oklahoma State has the upper hand in is that they can make OU one-dimensional in terms of, saying, hey, we're going to force you to run the ball. If they force you to run the ball, they're going to win.
How do you do that? Usually it's the other way around.
Right.
It's easier to cram the box and say, I'm going to put 7 guys in the box, throw the ball to beat us, like we've seen teams do to Oklahoma State. Mm-hmm. Matter of fact, Cincinnati did that to OSU last weekend. So how do you do the opposite? How do you drop into coverage and force the other team to throw the ball, and then not do that without OU going wild with the quarterback run game, and then their run game just all in all? Because when you look at OU running the ball wise offensively per game, okay, rushing the ball, they're second in the Big 12 at 181 yards a game. They're a good rushing team.
Mm-hmm. I'm not saying they aren't, but I'm saying that that's their weak point. It's definitely not through the pass game. I think how you do.
Yeah, they average almost 500 yards a game, not to stop you here, but 309 yards a game through the air, and they average 181 yards on the ground. That's pretty darn good.
Yeah, it is good. But I think how you almost make them one-dimensional, it comes with patience. And I know that's going to be hard for a young secondary, but you have to trust. Again, you just have to trust the front seven. You really do. You have to keep your eyes out of the backfield and keep them on your key. You got to keep them on the receiver. You've got to force Oklahoma to run the ball, and I think you have to play a spy because DylanGabriel can hurt you with his legs, not necessarily in a terrible way, but he's athletic enough to scramble and make you hurt in that way. So you have to have a spy. Kind of like what they did against Kansas, but they've got to defend the pass better.
Yeah. So is he going to scramble to throw or scramble to run?
I think he's going to.
The scramble to throw thing has been a very, from time to time has been something that our secondary has not been good at, by the way.
Right. I don't know. I'm trying to think of what he did against Cincinnati. Because that's the best rush defense that OU has seen.
They barely beat them. I know that. It was a close game.
Yeah. And that's, I think they went into that game knowing that they were going to have to throw the football, and Cincinnati went into that game knowing we're going to have to stop them throwing the football. So I think a lot can be learned from that game for us. You look at that game and say, okay, what did they do schematically on defense to prevent OU from just going off and scoring 60
DylanGabriel went for 322 against Cincinnati, and on that game, Marcus Major was the leading rusher with 63 yards. On the day, they had just 103 on the ground.
Yeah. I think they're so confused at the running back position right now, that in Oklahoma. It's hard to say because they've got Gavin Sawchuk, they've got Tawee Walker. Tawee Walker kind of reminds me of more of a Samaje Perine, more of a power back. He's not going to outrun you, but he will make you pay. And then Gavin Sawchuk and guys like that are a little bit quicker. Farouk is another guy. He's actually a receiver, but they like to give him the ball for some reason.
Kind of Brennan Presley type thing?
Yeah, but they do it too much, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And then Marcus Major was the other guy. They've been so inconsistent at that position. I couldn't tell you who's going to start this week. I have no idea.
Or who's going to be the bust out guy, yeah.
Exactly. And they don't know that, which hurts them. They all they know is they've got DylanGabriel, and then they've got Farouk and Antoine. I think it's Antoine Anthony, isn't it?
Andrell Anthony, Jaleel Farouk, Drake Stoops, Nick Anderson, Tawee Walker, Jaden Gibson, Marcus Major, Gavin Freeman, Austin Stogner, which, knowing this Oklahoma State OU game, Austin Stogner will have 17 catches, and they will all be for touchdowns. It seems like that big H-back kind of slot guy / tight end guy always has a big game against OSU.
Here's the thing. He has sucked all year. Sucked. He drops passes.
He's the one that went to South Carolina and came back, right?
Correct. He went with Spencer Rattler.
Yeah, right.
Obviously, that didn't work out too well because he ended up coming back to Oklahoma, but he has not been very good this year. So I think the guys that you have to keep your eyes on are Drake Stoops, whatever his name is, Farouk. I don't know, Jaleel Farouk.
Yeah, Jaleel.
And you got to stop Gabriel. Those are going to be your keys to stop Oklahoma. And then
how do you stop Gabriel? What's the game plan there?
You've got to force him to rush, to rush through his reads and stuff like that. Something that Kansas did. It was very frustrating.
So you got to pressure him. You got to bring pressure.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I wouldn't be surprised to see 4 or 5 guys in a rush per snap.
A one spy pressure is what I call it, where you bring pressure, you bottle them, and still have the one spy.
Yes, and that's what you're going to have to do because if you look, he was a little rushed when he threw that first pass against Kansas. It ended up being a pick 6. If he's rushed, he doesn't make great decisions. He'll either take off and run, or he'll try to force a pass. So you've got to find a way to get pressure on him. And I don't think Oklahoma's O-line has been near as good as what they have been in years past.
Yeah, Kirkland and those guys, they've been really good up front. Anthony Goodlow. So if Oklahoma State doesn't get their 3 receivers back next week, which they're not going to get all 3, obviously, and it's Leon Johnson, Rashad Owens, Brennan Presley, a little bit of Cale Cabness, and then your H-backs. How do you get open against that OU secondary?
The OU secondary stinks, in my opinion. They have the Woody Washington's terrible. I don't know who their other corners are, but I know that's going to be the guy to pick on. So you've got to find a way.
Who's the guy, though? Does OSU have that one receiver where you can say, hey, we've got a matchup over here, go beat it? Is Leon Johnson that guy yet?
I think he could be with his size.
Right now? I think he could be in time. But we're talking about 3 days from now.
Right. Well, yeah, I know what you mean. I think if what you did, you can't ignore what he did last week. I thought what he did last week was really special. But you also, it's going to have to come with creativity. It's going to have to come with.
So you got to get him open through scheme, and let the more scheme than it is just say, hey, you go out on that guy and beat that guy one-on-one.
Yes, because I don't think Oklahoma State has that, like you said, that one receiver. They don't have the Tylan Wallace. They don't have the Des Bryant. They don't have that one guy that's going to go out and just be an absolute dude. They have guys that are going to be good, but they don't have guys that are going to be standout guys, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I agree. That's kind of why I asked, how do you get them open?
But I think if you look at what Oklahoma has struggled with, they leave the middle of the field wide open. Mm-hmm. Wide open. So I think it's going to be a lot of short game. I think you can get them on some double moves if you go to a post corner, corner put, whatever.
How do you get them blocked? If they pass, they're very good at pass rushing. That's the best thing they do.
They are. They have Ethan Downs.
So how do you get them blocked long enough for an Alan Bowman type quarterback who's pretty much somewhat mobile, but not greatly mobile, doesn't really like to step up in the pocket? How do you get it blocked long enough for him to hit a double or triple move?
It's going to be hard to do, but I think you have to kill him with a short game. I mean, you have to. And then you've got to find a way. It's either with your H-backs in a diamond formation, or you've got to use Ollie. Ollie's a really good pass protector, and I think that kind of
and a good pass catcher.
He is. So there are so many weapons that they could. I mean, Oklahoma State has an advantage, I think, in terms of what they can do with their offense, because they don't, like I said, they don't have, outside of OllieGordon, they don't have that guy that's just absolutely insane. But they have so many good weapons around them. There's not a drop-off, if that makes sense. There's not a guy that's like, oh, you're terrible, Yeah. So I think that they have the upper hand. They can use so many different pieces in so many different ways. So I think, that's going to be hard for any defense. One thing I do know about, a BrentVenables defense is it's pretty disciplined in terms of they know what they're supposed to be doing. So there's not going to be a whole lot of confusion, I'd say, but like I said, they've left the middle of the field open so much. So I think you kill them there.
Tempo. Do you go huddle and you try to just go old school at this and try to kill clock, or do you try to match OU's tempo?
I think it depends on the situation. I think that if you're rolling,
I think OSU's going to come out as a game plan to slow it down. I would say that.
You think? I don't know,
because I think tempo is OU's game more than it is OSU's.
I would agree, but if you look at when Casey Dunn is confident and when the offense is doing good things, they do go quicker tempo because he's like, okay, I'm going to roll. I've got it figured out. That's why
he's got the matchups he wants, and so don't give the defense time to switch.
Right. I think it depends on how the game's going. And one thing that Casey Dunn does do, and MikeGundy, is they control the substitutions really well. If they find a good matchup, you can bet your money that not one guy is going to come off the field.
Yeah,
because as soon as that happens, the defense gets to make their change. The tempo slows down. They start to lose the edge that they've got when they're getting 10, 15 yards of play. So I think, like I said, I think it depends on how the game is going and what the situation is on in terms of their game plan. But what I'd like to see them do is find success early and do the same thing that Oklahoma does to defenses that they play to their defense, which is, make them play fast and make them tired. Because if you look, and this comes to hats off to Rob Glass and what he's done throughout the season and in the off season, Oklahoma State looks more energized in the second half than they do in the first. And that all comes down to conditioning and strength and stuff like that. Oklahoma State has done a great job of wearing down their opponents. And then at the end of the game, they just have these bursts, that are just like nobody can keep up. If you look, I think OllieGordon is a prime example. The dude carries the ball 29 times, and his last 15 touches are almost better than his first 15 touches. So, I think that's another way that you can hurt them.
Okay, so we're about to wrap this thing up, and we appreciate you guys watching our Bedlam preview show. Super excited. I know Chase, you and I both will be there Saturday afternoon. We'll be there early, and we will be there bright and loud. I'm going to go up into my corner because, like I said, I can't be around people at OSU football games because I bitch and moan way too much, and I drive everybody else in that entire section nuts around me. So I'm going to try to find the emptiest spot in the entire stadium to sit Saturday afternoon so I can sit there with my own thoughts and digest the entire thing. So it's going to be super exciting. If I were to say, Chase Witwiska, Oklahoma State is going to beat OU if...
If you dumb it down to one thing and put me on the spot, I have trouble with it. if they stop DylanGabriel.
Stop DylanGabriel in the rushing game or the passing game?
In the passing game.
Yeah. So if you stop OU's passing game and make it a OSU run game versus OU run game, OSU wins.
Yeah, I think you even have a chance with OllieGordon versus DylanGabriel. He's been so dadgum good. So if Oklahoma figures out a way to stop OllieGordon, we're going to be in trouble.
Yeah.
If they don't figure out how to stop OllieGordon, which if you look at what the Cincinnati Bearcats did last week, who's supposed to be one of the best rushing defenses in the nation and by far in the conference, he made them look like fools. So I think he's a very hard person to stop. If they do stop him, we're going to be in trouble. But if Oklahoma State finds a way to stop the OU pass offense, I think they have a great chance to win.
OSU loses to OU if
they stop OllieGordon.
Yeah. That simple?
Simple as that.
Okay, man. Going to continue putting you on the spot here. What's your favorite Bedlam memory?
It has to be 2021 when we won last time at home.
Really?
You know, that was my first Bedlam experience, being at the game. It was an absolute blast, and just kind of the way the game went, it was a roller coaster. We were up, then we were down, then we were up, then we were down, then we got down by a lot, and we came back up and ended up winning. That was a blast.
Worst Bedlam memory?
Oh, gosh.
That's a lot tougher one, isn't it?
It is, no comment. I would say last year, just because of how bad the first half was. I mean, I was so mad. I didn't even want to watch the rest of the game. I did because, loyal and true, but holy cow, last year was bad.
I've got a kind of oddball one. My favorite OSU-OU memory, not necessarily of a play, but when OU was ranked number 2 and they're getting ready to play for the national title, and OSU went on the road, and Rashawn Woods actually caught a touchdown pass right in front of my dad, who was refereeing that game.
Oh,
and
sweet.
Tyler was there, my son. He was like 5, and my nieces were there. I was there with Mom and Courtney and everybody. We were all there. And Rashawn Woods literally caught it like 8 feet away from us with my dad calling that play. So that was a really cool moment. And then I remember Luke Phillips coming in and kicking field goals and Les Miles and just his swag when it came to OU. I would have to say that game, honestly, although Oklahoma State did not go to a bowl game, that was definitely my favorite Bedlam memory just from a personal perspective. And my worst one, no doubt about it, not even close, 1988. I bawled all the way home back to Grandma's house in 1988 when MikeGundy threw it up to Brent Parker. It looked like he was open. I don't think it got deflected, but he didn't catch the ball, and they called that stupid penalty on Garrett Limbrick. That was really, really, really stupid. They shouldn't have called that, backed the thing all the way up, to where it was almost basically like a Hail Mary. You had Barry Sanders, the greatest running back in the history of college football probably, and you still couldn't beat OU. And at that time, Chase, I was 15 years old. The last time you'd beaten OU was 1976 when I was 3. So at that point in my life, I didn't remember the 1976 game because I was 3, right? I mean, I saw videos of it. I had never seen OSU beat OU with my own eyes. And I thought it was going to happen that year in 88. It didn't happen. And I bawled all the way back to Grandma's house, walking back there to 6th and Lewis by the old Leachman Theater. So that was a terrible moment.
Well, I wouldn't even thought of in 1988, so I have no idea what you're talking about. But, and I definitely wasn't thought of in what did you say, 73?
Yeah.
Yeah, not even close. My dad was born in 73, so I have no clue. That is way before my time. So
12-0 game was great because that was the first game ever not in my lifetime, but that I can remember OSU beating OU and seeing it with my own eyes. So that was cool too. So those are some of my favorite Bedlam memories. You got any more?
I'm a young guy, man. There's been a lot more disappointment than there has excitement. I do like
a lot more excitement in your lifetime than I had at my stage of your lifetime. There's no doubt.
The Tyreek Hill punt return was special.
That was cool.
That was special. In Norman, with the environment and stuff like that was sweet. That was another fun one. But the play where there was 2 actually in that 21 game that always run through my mind, and it's the one where Brennan Presley returns the kickoff.
Yes.
I have never experienced a more loud environment in my life. I mean, it was so cool.
You're never in DylanGabriel in the 90s.
And then I mean, it was insane. And then the sack to end the game, CollinOliver, you know, the little freshman CollinOliver making a huge sack against Caleb Williams, and seeing Caleb Williams cry after the game, that was great. That was funny.
Yes.
And then, you know, Lincoln Riley, that's sorry sucker. I don't like it. I don't like him. I'm not even an OU fan, and I don't like him. I think Caleb Williams is kind of a punk. So it was nice to see them upset.
Chase is coming out firing tonight, huh? It is definitely Bedlam week, right?
Absolutely.
Another one was, I was 10 years old, and Oklahoma State had a substantial lead going into the fourth quarter, and OU scores, and nobody on the team knows it's going to be an onside kick. I think I have this story right. I may get this wrong. The only person on the entire field that actually knew it was supposed to be an onside kick was the kicker, and he kicks an onside kick. It's like a really hard knuckleball. I believe it was Chris Rockins. It may have been Mark Morgan. I think it was Chris Rockins. It hits right off of his helmet, and then OU gets the ball. And they come back and win that game. I believe that was 1983, 84, somewhere in there. That was when they had Rusty Hilger, and Thurman Thomas was still, I believe that was right before Thurman Thomas got there. Ernest Anderson was a running back. Don't exactly quote me on that. You know, you had Bobby Riley and Malcolm Lewis and Barry Hanna and all those guys. And then you had J.R. Dillard, who was the tight end after that whenever MikeGundy came in beyond that. And then so you had that game, and then you had the 88 game, and then you had a game when OSU was terrible. Okay, and it was a really good game. And I think OSU had the lead when Cale Gundy was the quarterback. Pat Jones calls a timeout right before halftime, right? Because he wants to try to block an OU punt, and OU has the ball at midfield. So instead of punting, you know what OU did? They threw a Hail Mary.
Yeah.
And Adrian Cooper caught it. So Oklahoma State called a timeout to allow OU to throw a Hail Mary that they completed right before half that got them the momentum to come back in the second half.
Don't get me started on Pat Jones right now, dude. I'm so angry with that guy. Oh, my God.
Yeah, and then the worst one, he's kind of a grumpy old man, no doubt.
I don't know if you listen to him on the Sports Animal.
No, I don't listen to the Sports Animal.
Oh, my God.
And then probably the most frustrating one for me, Gary Gibbs elected to kick a stinking field goal to tie the damn game. Tie. You can't tie in a Bedlam game. You didn't have overtime back then. That was terrible. You can't tie a Bedlam game. You either win it or lose it.
Absolutely. You got.
I lost all respect for Gary Gibbs that day.
Well, I lost all respect for Pat Jones listening to him the past few weeks with, OllieGordon's average. He's just a guy. Shut up. You know, I can't stand. I'm sorry. You know, I'm high on the kid, but at the same time, there's nobody in the nation that can just come out and say he's just a guy or he's average. I'm telling you right now, if he pops off.
What's the point? I mean, what's the point in saying that? What does he gain by saying that? Why?
I don't know. He's stupid.
Does he think he's cool by saying something like that?
He thinks he's smart. And what's going to happen is the one game that Ollie doesn't rush for 150, he's going to say, I told you so. That's what he's going to get out of it. But
he's probably assuming OU's going to win.
Quick question. If OllieGordon goes off for 150 or does what he's done the past few weeks, does he end up in the top 5 in the Heisman ballot?
No.
You don't think so?
No, because OSU's not going to be anywhere close to. They're not going to be in the limelight. They're not going to be. Well, I mean, I say it. Well,
you have to think. It's a good question
because if they beat OU, they're going to be in the Big 12 championship game if they just take care of business.
Well, in this game,
and that's a pretty big limelight. So
it's going to. I mean, this is going to be a big time national. This is going to be a big time national game because the college football ranking just came out. Oklahoma State is ranked 22nd, and OU is ranked, I think, 9. So I mean, people are going to pay attention to this game, and not only because of the rankings, but it's the last Bedlam. I think that means something to.
It's just Bedlam, period. It's a great game.
Right. So this is going to be a national game. I think if he does what he's done, I think you see him in the top 5 next week.
All right, man. It's been a lot of fun.
All right.
Give me a go, Pokes.
Go, Pokes.